I'm stepping down, I'm not running for president. I'm sorry, what?
Hi, I'm Andy,
And I'm Roger,
and welcome to The Middle,
where we try to have thoughtful conversations
about awkward topics.
on our search to find the middle.
We're going to give you last week's news today.
That's a slogan we should put on the t-shirt.
Stop touching her!
I am tonight announcing my candidacy.
Taylor Swift.
Look, my biggest issue with marriage is that I think that it's a fundamentally flawed institution that is built on the oppression of women.
I will not be lectured about sexism and misogyny.
Having truly rational conversations about controversial issues is risky these days.
Roger.
Andy, how you doing?
Oh, pretty good. How about yourself?
Oh, mate, I've just been back from a holiday today, which is why I'm a little bit late to the session. I've got an excuse. But we went travelling to Port Douglas with all four of the kids. And that's right, you heard it, 4 kids. And the problem with this time was, like, we've travelled before plenty of times, but this one in particular really broke me, and I think it was because of the combination. So we had, just for our listeners, the ages of the kids. We had, like a 4-month-old, a 18-month-old, a 4-year-old, and an 8-year-old all together. And the 18-month-old just created the most intense havoc on the airplane ride. It was brutal, man. Like, she was sick, but they're always sick. But she had a bad cold and just so sensitive and emotional. We didn't pay for a seat for the 2 youngest, so they were on. I had the toddler on my lap, like grinding my balls to pikelets the whole time, like rocking me, like with her shoes, and just screaming and kicking the chair in front. It was brutal, and it just like really, really broke me. On the way back, there was. I was just keeping it together. I was using every trick in the book I had, from like mindfulness, stoicism, just like leaving my body, like Jocko style, like detachment from the situation. At one point, I was like astral projecting above my body, just watching myself. And then she took a shit, and I had to change her mid-flight because my partner had the newborn. And I don't know how to describe it, but everyone knows what a toilet is, the cubicle is on an airplane, right? It's tiny little thing. And one of them has a change mat, which I wouldn't call it a change mat. I call it like a flip down, tiny little like placemat. And you're meant to change this 18-month-old toddler on it that's just like shat their pants, and they're like kicking and screaming, and there's like shit flying everywhere. It's like trying to wrestle a kind of greased up alligator in a phone booth. It was just nuts. And that was the last straw that actually broke me. And I was just like, came out of that bad boy like Auschwitz. I'm like, never again.
Wait, was that on the way up or was that on the way back?
That was on the way back, where we had already, like been drained. And, I've literally, the trip's taken years off my life.
Shall we get into a listener question?
Let's do it.
All right. So, this is a summarized version of a question that we got. Listener here, loving the depth you bring to complex topics. I'm a 58-year-old American secular Jew, and I found your discussion on Gaza and the Jerry Seinfeld incident very engaging. Regarding Seinfeld, I believe his visit to Israel was an act of solidarity following the October 7 attack, not necessarily an endorsement of government strategies. It's crucial to distinguish between supporting Israel's right to exist and endorsing every government action which Seinfeld's critics may overlook. Anti-Semitism and anti-Zionism often intersect, making these discussions nuanced and essential. The reality of civilian casualties in conflicts like these is tragic and complex, highlighting the importance of intent and the ethical challenges in military responses. Thanks for providing a platform for these important conversations.
Wow. This is making me feel bad saying that Ruben was the only Jew that I knew. So now we got 2.
I think we can, in true... What was that guy who used to host Q&A? What was his name?
You're not talking about Grant?
No. The first guy,
Oh,
Tony.
The original
what was his
Fox.
name? Tony something.
I want to say Tony Burke, but it's not.
No. You Google it. But
yeah, let me go.
but reminds me of, he's just always just say, we'll take that as a comment when someone just got in their soapbox and didn't actually ask a question. So we can park that as a comment rather than a question. But I remember over the past week or so, I messaged you almost in a fit of outrage because I just finished watching. I watched Tony Jones. That's it was Q&A. Tony Jones. God, that's such a shit show now. Anyway,
I'll take that as a comment.
But like, so I had watched Roger Waters on Piers Morgan discussing Israel-Palestine conflict, and it just kind of infuriated me. Like, it was just. Now I should say, like, just put my cards on the table. Like, I love Pink Floyd and Roger Waters, right? I like musically, like I'm into it, right? And I think actually, Roger, if you recall, a few years back, we went and saw Roger Waters in concert, right? I think
we did. Yeah, we saw both the Roger Waters Experience and
I think we both even bought the T-shirt. Did you buy the T-shirt?
I did, but I bought it. I bought it in a size that was too small. But, anyway.
Aspirational.
I didn't have time to try it on.
Well, we even went and bought the Roger Waters T-shirt, but fuck, he's so dumb. Like he's just deluded. Like he really is. Like, without rehashing the whole thing, but like it's going into he's just got this. It's almost like he will. We're all in different universes, like, and that I think that's maybe part of this. The challenge with this whole conflict is that we're all in completely different universes. There's no common Esperanto language connecting those universes up together. And when I listen to Roger Waters, like, even have elements of denial about certain things that happened on October 7, or kind of almost say, you haven't done the research, you haven't done the reading. What you've got to do is you've got to go and do the reading, as though, actually, like, there's some, I don't know, what is this, some conspiracy that's going on that, like, is this Mossad that's just, like, corralled all the thought leaders to get, like, yeah, just,
I love that line though, right? It's like, it always gets to that line, doesn't it? Whenever you get heated, it's like, oh, you need to educate yourself, or you obviously haven't read, this report, or you should check out this hashtag YouTube artist. Like, it's always something like that, like as if, somehow along the way in our distrust for the mainstream media, we've tricked ourselves into believing there's this whole other, like, encyclopedia of knowledge out there. And it's just not true. It's like, you think that these news platforms wouldn't love there to be another side to the story, to kind of, to weave their web. But yeah, he's always so. I think the thing with Roger Waters, and he can do whatever he wants. It's his music, it's his production. He can fly Trump around as a pig if he wants to, right? Like, it's his party. But he's so self-righteous in interviews, right? And really, the people to blame are the ones that get him on as a guest to begin with, right? Like, Piers knows exactly what he's doing when he invites someone like Roger Waters onto his show to talk about the Middle East, right? But he just serves it up. He does, and he's so indignant about everything about it, right? I know he had that famous interview about, like, the whole China-Taiwan thing, right? And China-Taiwan-Ukraine and all that went viral. It's a tough watch, and I know when you sent me that, I was just like, I've had a hard day. I don't think I can do it. I don't think I can do it. But look, going back to this listener, it really made my day reading that, and thanks for writing in to us, because this is one of those topics that is omnipresent, a bit like Russia, Ukraine. It's kind of sitting there, kind of coloring everything at the moment, and it's good to actually have that feedback that people are up for a bit more of a nuanced discussion. I hesitate even saying nuance because it's such an overused word at the moment, but I do think that, like, if you listen to that episode, and then we have a few others, so I really encourage you to listen to our episode Skin in the Game and the one before that, what was it called? Scarves and what was it?
Two whiteys and a kefir.
Two whiteys and a scarf or something. Because we have a follow on from that, so I really invite you to go listen to those. But that's a good example of, you just hear the talking points when it comes to this conflict. It's really, really hard to, if you have a hunger for someone who is truly grappling, or not even like a moderate, just someone who looks at both sides and concedes a little bit of ground to like allow a conversation. I think that's kind of what we need, right? If you're listening to, by the way, I'd love for you to email us again and tell us what what I really want to know is, do American Jews identify with Israeli culture? Because I've heard that is like very, very different ends of the spectrum. Like the Jewish kind of American culture that we know and love from Seinfeld and Woody Allen and all these kind of things has nothing to do with Israeli culture, which is like really macho and prideful and all this kind of like not really as neurotic and all this kind of stuff. But I'd love that perspective.
I just like sort of food from Israeli food, but I don't know if like Israeli food is the same thing as Jewish food in America.
Yeah, I don't think it is.
No, like it's quite. I think like Israeli cuisine is like basically just like Lebanese cuisine, right? Whereas
everyone probably just thinks of it as ottolenghi.
Well, I always think of like the babka, from Seinfeld, and pastrami, and the marble rye. The marble rye. Anyway, sorry, I don't know where I'm going now, but I think we should commiserate about the last week's developments. So, just for posterity, I think we should note it's the 12th of July today here in Australia, which is just after another terrible Joe Biden performance, confusing Zelensky for Putin, calling
Putin.
Trump, calling Kamala Harris Vice President Trump, all in one day. And that's not even to mention the debate. We just let's just ignore that. This is really depressing, isn't it?
It's tough, right? Like, I think I remember we had a bit of a chat on the phone after the debate, and I don't think you were really engaging with it that much, but I couldn't help it. I kind of did, because like our mantra is the middle, and often when you hear all this stuff about someone, they're in decline, they got early onset dementia, and then the other side saying, "Oh, he's a dynamo," he fucking does level 10 Sudokus in his sleep. You just kind of think to yourself, okay, this is just political, one-upsmanship, and actually the truth is somewhat in the middle, right? He's not a young man, but he is obviously, he's with it. And then comes the debate, and it's just shocking. It's like the truth is not in the middle. You can no longer make, you can no longer make excuses when it's all laid bare like that, right? And it was quite shocking to me. Like, it was very. I think the thing that really shocked me that it didn't seem to me like a bad performance, right? It seemed to me more to do with like, okay, this is what he's working with. Like, this is actually his level of well-being, right? This is kind of his cognitive level, and you can't hide it in a debate like that, even when you try to tip the scales in your favor by taking out the audience and all the other things that the Democrats demanded. It was tough. And I remember saying to you that, like, I just felt really sad, like I felt like really, really upset. And I don't have any skin in the game with, obviously we don't have any skin in the game directly with this election, but it was tough to see someone up there and just like, showing signs of just struggling so much, being out of their depth, confused, and just, it was hard for him not to be bullied out there, right? Especially by someone like Trump, who was probably being the most restrained I've ever seen him be. Probably because it was, when someone's already tripping over their shoes, it's not a good look to kick them down again, right? But I don't know. How did you feel kind of with the situation here, right? Like what's the kind of question you asked yourself after all the revelations of the last 2 weeks?
Where to start? It's just really depressing. I think what's depressing about it is that, in some ways, is that this has been and is and continues to be such a slow-moving car crash for so long, and yet we're still here, and nothing's changing. Like, and I say nothing's changing, but what might actually be happening is there's all these like crisis, meetings and all this sort of stuff, and anyone who's anyone is trying to convince him to stand down, and it's literally now just about like how do you actually pivot to the next candidate, and it could be very close to happening for all we know, right? Because of course if he's he's sort of in it, and if until he's out of the contest, it's going to be all chips on Joe Biden, right? So it's not like it's not like the public messaging is going to be, oh, well, we're just still figuring out if we're still going to be here, and oh, actually, we're going to it's going to be all in until it's not. But in terms of the actual okay, so he's clearly in decline, in terms of his acumen, in terms of his he doesn't look switched on. He's not he doesn't inspire people, right, at the moment. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I think, 4 years ago when we were actually having the same conversations, it's just that he was not as bad, right?
Yeah.
But he still had, the odd gaffe or whatever, stumble or whatever.
Yeah,
but
gaffes you can live with, right?
But it's a lot.
Everyone has that. Yeah.
But it's a lot worse now, right? And I think, I would like to put my cards on the table in terms of what I think. Well, for one, you could basically take an empty chair. You could have Joe Biden on life support in a coma, and it would still be better than Donald Trump. And that's maybe what makes this whole thing so depressing. So I guess if the actual question is who is better to run the country, the Biden administration as a collective, including all his advisors and his cabinet and all that sort of stuff, or Donald Trump, then absolutely it will still be Joe Biden. But at the same time, that's not what the American people are going to vote for, because there's going to be a lot of people who were Biden supporters at the last election who are going to go, no, I'm not risking that. I'm not coming out to vote for that. You got to serve me up something better.
I think it's a bit. We have a bit of a disagreement on this. I think that it's now to the stage where it's not about swapping out someone who is not performing. I don't think that's the issue anymore. I think it's deeper than that. I think the question most people are asking themselves goes to the tune of, how did they let it get this way? How did we get here? Right? That's probably the most overwhelming question I think that people come away from after seeing the debate and things like that. How did we get here? How did a political party let us get here? Right? Like you said, it's been so slow moving. And I think that now is not an issue of, is Joe Biden qualified or healthy enough to perform? It's actually now a judgment on the political class that got us to the stage, right? And that's why I think that it won't matter. I'm not saying that I disagree with your kind of view of the empty chair versus Trump, because but this is about trust. This is about integrity, right? I think that you can't everyone's to blame here. It's not just Joe Biden, right? And that kind of tars the whole party.
I don't think it tars the party, because for starters, you get elected president by the American people, and he's the incumbent president, and he has the right, or I'm not sure actually what the process was for him to be the nominee going forward at this upcoming election, but if he withdraws on his own volition, and that's kind of what it would have to be, I don't see how that takes any skin off the cause against Trump. Like I can't imagine who is it that's going to go, this wasn't as clean as I would like it to be, so I'm going to vote for Trump. Like, that's virtually no one, right? And in fact, it could have the opposite effect, right? If they switch out Biden, he has this honourable press conference where he says, "Oh, look, it's come, I've had some people raise some concerns with me, and I'm just going to stand aside, and I'm not going to accept the nomination." And now this is a big if, but if you had a clean move to then whoever that candidate that replaces him is, and it's clean and it's well coordinated, then that could almost be, thank Christ we don't have to vote for Donald Trump or Joe Biden. Like, thank Christ we have like another option to choose, right? And I think Donald Trump's very good at bringing out his base of crazy lunatics, but I don't think that's where middle America is at. And I think middle America would probably be quite receptive to someone else, especially if they're concerned, like I think a lot of people are, about Donald Trump and what, he's the threat that he poses, right? But of course now all we're talking about is the threat that Joe Biden poses, and that's not a good space to be. But just the last thing I want to say on it is that there's so many ifs in all of that, right? Kamala Harris is probably the cleanest candidate to move to in terms of like a process, but she's also not very popular, and she's probably not going to beat Trump. So then you've got, like, how do you get from Joe Biden to someone like Gavin Newsom or another candidate who's a fresh face but that's competent and capable and can sort of almost outperform Trump, right? And that's the hard part.
All right. So, look, I see what you're saying, but I do think that there's damage to the institution and the party because people don't like being lied to. And when you double down and you make a gamble and you make a bet and you go on TV and you do the news circuit and you say, he's a dynamo, Biden's a dynamo, and you got all the lieutenants lining up and all this kind of stuff. And then that risk, that gamble goes so sour, there is a reputational cost to all the top brass. And they're the ones that are still going to be there. You can't gut the whole party, right? So that's number one, right? Like, it's more than just a bad performance by Biden. It's a bad performance because people want the trust, they want the judgment, they want to respect the integrity of the office, and this is a big problem for that. So I think that's number one. Number two, yes, I think I want to fully acknowledge that Trump has caused this. Trump is such a wild card. He's such a prick that he is making people do the calculus in the head to say the ends justify the means. And they are now saying, and a lot of people have said this, like, we've got to do what we have to do to stop Trump coming into power and causing damage, right, to democracy, to America. And that's the wrong way to think about it, right? Like, they're forcing people to make that gamble where you're like, we're going to do things that we wouldn't normally do because all's fair in love and war, right?
But hang on, can I just pull you up? Like, what is it that you're saying that has happened that shouldn't have happened? Like, I mean, if he withdraws from his candidacy, what is it that, like, what's the big ethical conundrum here?
Oh, it's not okay. I think I've said that when you have all your top lieutenants kind of backing him, when they know that he is compromised, right? Then there's a judgment issue.
I think where I would see this quite differently is that he's president now, and the last 3 or more than 3 years in office that he's had. He's run an administration. He's been the president. And the question is about whether you give him 4 more years, right? So him withdrawing his candidacy for the next 4 years isn't the same thing as admitting that, like, there's some, see, we were all lying all along, like that they're not. That's not.
It's a judgment thing, though. Come on, like, you can't. you can't bet on a horse, and when
no,
the
okay.
horse like fucking trips over themselves,
no,
you gotta take it on the chin. You can't be like, oh well, I thought he was a dynamo.
It's not like this is different. This system is different to the Westminster system we've got here in Australia. This isn't like the faceless men behind the scenes choose their candidate, right? These are guys who have like they've campaigned at the grassroots level to win their position. This isn't them being appointed to the position and then it being all turning out to be a scam all along. He's the incumbent president. I mean, he won the nomination. He beat Trump. And he's the incumbent president, and he decided he wanted to go again. And I'm not sure precisely what the nature of him winning the nomination again as the incumbent president is, whether that's the same thing as if it were an open field or whatever. But he had the nomination, and it would be him handing the nomination back and saying, look, I've decided not to continue on the advice and after consulting my family. Like, I think he can have the honourable exit. Like, I think... And I don't think that necessarily tarnishes. And
no, I don't think that does. But I'm saying that the damage has already been done, I fear.
Well, the damage has been done in the sense, not so much in that there's some, like the public is going to be offended by the withdrawal, but more so that there hasn't been the opportunity for the incumbent candidate to, or whoever the new candidate is to, and in fact, the fact that there's going to be this... Like, if Biden announces tomorrow, I'm withdrawing, unless he kind of appoints his successor and it's a clean move to, say, Kamala Harris or whatever, if it's going to be, like, open to... Like, it's going to be fucking chaos. Like, there's going to be, like, 3 or 4 viable candidates, but it's going to be a shit fight. And they've only got 4 months, so I think in that sense, you're right. The damage has been done. But I don't think in the eyes of the public, I think if they manage to get a viable candidate, then I think the public are just like, well, I don't think it's...
No.
Yeah.
I think I agree about that part. What I just kind of think is like, if you shit the bed, whoever is the new candidate still has to get in the same bed, right? And there's still shit on the bed.
But the bed, the bed is not. It isn't shit.
There is fecal matter all over the bed.
But there is no shit in the bed in the sense that, like, I mean, I don't think anyone's legitimately saying the administration has failed. Like, no one's saying
because they have backed him.
No, but no one's. Do you know what the people like when it comes down to it? People are criticizing that he's an old man who confuses some words in his speech. That's what's being criticised. No one's saying... I'm sure there are people saying his policies are rubbish and all of that. But at the end of the day, the actual legitimate mainstream commentary on Joe Biden in the last week and a half has not been on policy. It's not been on anything he's done. It's not been on what he plans to do over the next 4 years. It's been on... his fucking, like, verbal fluency. Yeah, that's what it's been on. So I don't think there's shit in the bed in that sense. Like, I think he can own his exit. He can get up. I mean, he's got to own his exit. Like, if it's gonna happen, it's gonna be him owning his exit, right? And okay, yep. And you know what? People who would be critical of the Democrats for, I mean, this is just to touch on your point maybe more directly. This is a mistake that was made 4 years ago, not a mistake made today. This is 4 years ago. Electing, like, okay, we went from having presidents from the silent generation, so those born from, I think, 1925 to, just before the end of the war, to we had a boomer president in Obama. And then we went back to the silent generation. That was the fucking mistake, that we don't have a Gen X president now is the mistake. And it's not like he can own his exit, and I think it's possible. It's absolutely possible. And just one last comment on that. No one is jumping from the Democrat camp saying, the Democrats, we can't trust them with government, so we've got to go to Trump. Like literally no one is thinking like that.
There are people, I guarantee, everyday people that will be saying these guys look like they're in shambles, right? Because they have made judgment calls that seem to be legitimately terrible, right? So,
but what calls have they made? No one's made calls.
The thing that comes to mind, and I've been hearing this a lot in kind of the rhetoric, is and this works unfortunately because he is an old man who. But there's something that actually most people go through when their parents get old, and they remember it and they tell the stories all the time, whenever you talk to them, right? Which I've had the chance to talk to a few of my colleagues and other people, and they always remember the time leading up to when they had to take the keys from their parents, right? There comes a time where you think you can still drive, you're fucking dangerous, and you don't give it up. Is actually your kids or your loved ones that actually take your keys from you. Now, that sucks. It's a very universal experience, and it's going to be one that is appropriate in this situation, that actually, when you get to the point of where Biden is, it's very rare that you're going to give up the keys. The people around you have to take them from you. And I think that's all I'm talking about right here. Like, I get he can do the transition thing, he can do this, he can do that. But why I'm saying there's tarnish there is because the kids or the lieutenants or the party, they have to take the keys.
Yeah, but
right?
they can't. They can't. They've this isn't a Westminster system, right? This isn't a case of the party deciding that their leader is no longer fit to lead. This is a guy who has won the presidency and the nomination to go around again. So
I also think it's a bit naive to think that the party can't influence more.
They can't. They can't.
They can.
No. There's no mechanism. There's literally no mechanism for anyone in the Democratic Party to say, we don't like you anymore, we want you. It has to be them convincing him that he's not appropriate anymore, that he shouldn't go again.
Money talks, this is all based on the donors as well. It's not just, Joe's in power now. He gets to kind of say when he puts the gloves up. It's not like that, man. There's so
but
much
once
that goes
you've
into it.
But once you've locked in a candidate, right? It's past the point of no return, right? And that's where we're at. So we're past the point of no return, pending him pulling out, right, himself, and making the decision himself. But there's no one in the party that can. Well,
either way, all the things that you're talking about, where you're like, this does not resonate with everyday people, right? Like, that's not like, Well,
I just think it's quite different, right? So I think in Australia and in, like, say, the UK or whatever, you look at a bad prime minister and you go, you got to get rid of this fucker because otherwise it's on you, right? That's not how it works over there. It's quite different. And of course it's quite different over there too, because there's the whole thing of bringing out the base, right? So someone like Donald Trump, he's got his supporters who are passionate almost because, like, Donald Trump's a troll and they love to troll the rest of, the elites or whatever. And then you've got Joe Biden, who I don't think anyone's passionate about. I don't think anyone's ever been passionate about Joe Biden. But hey, he's not Donald Trump. And that still probably carries, some sway, right? He's not Donald Trump. So whoever's in that seat is going to get people voting for them because they're not Donald Trump. And then I guess the key thing is now you've got a lot of people thinking, I'm not so sure if I should come out and vote for Biden either because he's not quite, I don't quite trust that he's going to be okay in 4 years' time. So you know what? I'm just going to disengage from this election. If you move to a new candidate, whoever that is, they keep all the, I'll do anything to not make sure it's not Donald Trump. Plus this person, almost in the same way as Donald Trump. Sorry, I'm doing a Joe Biden now. Almost in the same way as Joe Biden 4 years ago was the I'm not Donald Trump candidate. They'll inherit that. And you know, like I said, it's like someone like a Gavin Newsom, right? You know, you hear him talk, he's like, oh yeah, that's what like a good politician sounds like. You know, that's what kind of like Obama sounded like. You know, I mean, nothing like Obama because he was like once in a generation sort of leader, but that kind of like, I can talk, he can talk. Like he actually can string a sentence together, and I'm not scared that he's going to make him. You know, and you go back to that, and suddenly people get energized by candidates. So I think that, and you know, if let's say by the end of this weekend, Joe Biden withdraws, and they can somehow move to a candidate in the next 1 or 2 weeks, in 3 months' time, when we're hot in the tails of the vote, they won't remember this. They won't think about this even.
I think it's, yeah. I want to believe you, but I just kind of think that this everyday people hate being lied to in such an obvious way, right? And I think that there was this kind of almost like public gaslighting of every time there was some kind of attack on Joe Biden's cognitive decline or whatever, it was always just met with like, oh, you're being ageist, he's fine, he's great, he's actually better than great, this is the best version of Biden I've ever seen, you know, which is actually like, that's a verbatim quote from the last month. So I just think people are not forgiving when they've been lied to like that.
Look, I think we should park this aspect of the conversation, but I do think, with one parting shot, I do think you're projecting a little bit of what the fundamentals of Australian politics into the situation that I think,
I guess that's all I can do.
is a little bit different. Like this is just how I feel. Like I just think it's very tribal over there in the US. It's very, you have your party, like you engage in politics. They engage in politics in a way that we don't hear. Here we have to vote
face as well.
But we have to vote here in Australia. We have compulsory voting, so everyday people have to form a view about our politicians in a way that they don't in the US. So in the US, the people who do get out and vote,
all right,
they're partisan, they're tribal. But I want to pivot to something a little bit different, which is how does all of this make you feel about Trump now? Like, how do you, after seeing that, like the debate, thinking about Trump, like how do you feel about Donald Trump now? Do you feel differently about Donald Trump now in the context of Biden?
In the context of Biden, I think that there's no doubt in my mind that if you needed to have someone represent you personally, from a legal standpoint, like these are the options, right? You've got Biden's going to go in there and negotiate for you for whatever outcome, and you know there could be varying stakes from as little as getting that pay rise to as high as like, you know, whether you're going to go to jail or something. There's no doubt in my mind that you're going to want Trump there representing you, right? If it's an individual person. But like you said, it's not like that. There's a whole party force behind it. There's this, that. The way that I think about Trump hasn't changed, you know, in the sense that I see him, and maybe this is just because I've read the Steve Jobs biography lately, but I see him kind of in that stratosphere of humans, that actually he is deeply, deeply problematic, disruptive, narcissist, asshole, makes life probably miserable for a lot of people around him, whether they work for him or are his enemies. But, and a big but, I think that sometimes you need those kind of people to get certain things done. And I do think that harnessed in the right way, you can get some good outcomes. Maybe not the most strategic long term, but I have my doubts in that endeavor anyway. So to answer your question, I don't think my fundamental worldview of Trump has changed, other than say that if it's one-on-one, leader to leader, in a room together negotiating, you've got to say you'd prefer that to be the current Trump versus current Biden.
Yeah, I mean, if I can put policy and like the actual consequences of decisions and his instincts and his judgment and his administration and his supporters and all of that out of the equation, and just literally look at the man as a communicator, like it's, I suppose there's no doubt that he is so far ahead of Biden in terms of like, not just like And I mean, actually, like, Trump is actually not a good communicator. Like, can we just say that? Like, he's just all over the place. He just makes shit up because he doesn't actually know the answer. He hasn't done the work, and he doesn't prepare. So he just waffles, and if he gets caught off guard, he'll just make something up. He'll literally make something up. So he's
Dad,
not a good. He's actually
you've got
not
a dog
good
wife. Your wife's a dog.
He's not a good communicator, but he's
entertaining communicator.
He doesn't. I guess it's just that he's sort of so confident and so bold and so
He's American.
doesn't give a fuck, and that it's almost like endearing in some way, but in a way that I feel guilty finding endearing. And I just think that he'll absolutely wipe the floor off of Biden, right? And he'll give people this, and like exactly what you said earlier, if he just shuts up in a debate situation, he just comes across as like, okay, this is the safe pair of hands. Like, this is the safer pair of hands. But it's only when you then add the additional layers of like, what's he actually believe? What will he actually do? His negligence, his disregard for institutions, his disregard for people, his personal morals, his ethics, his everything else. And I think we just got to remember, this guy is a fucking nutcase who should never have been, like, there's no way anyone who uses fucking half a brain could want to vote for this person over, even if Biden gets a public diagnosis of dementia. I'd fucking take Biden with dementia any day of the week over Trump.
Well, you wouldn't want Biden negotiating a used car for you, would you? Compared to
No, but I'd be happy enough that they'll wheel Biden out with a wheelchair, and look a bit confused.
But couldn't it be the same
while
way,
his
though?
team's doing this shit, like, you know.
Okay, well, let me counter you an offer, Andy, in the whole spirit of the art of the deal. Wouldn't it? How's it any different from rolling Trump out in some kind of perspex cage to arm wrestle world leaders every now and then, and to, like, you know, shirt front them, and then go back into his Mar-a-Lago golf course while the adults do the rest of the admin?
Yeah, but the thing is that's what's different about Trump. That's what's so dangerous about Trump. There are no adults. There are no, like, there is no
his children are getting a bit older. They'd be right.
Baron Trump to the vice
Barron's a
presidency.
stud, apparently. He's 6'10".
But like that's actually what I am most fearful about when it comes to Donald Trump, because I know that this crazy motherfucker is actually the one in charge, as opposed to with, say, other administrations. Like, Biden would go, well, look, I don't know that much about electric vehicles, so I will let the person responsible for electric vehicles within my administration make policy decisions and guide that agenda, because I know nothing about it.
Don't pretend.
Whereas Donald Trump will be like, hey, I met with that Elon Musk and he offended me, so we're going to increase taxes on electric vehicles. Like, that's literally what happens in the Trump administration. And
Don't try
that's
to
not
pretend
good.
that Biden knows what an EV is, all right? Look, no, I get what you're saying. Wouldn't it be hilarious if, like, Trump's plan to end the war in Ukraine in 4 days of being in office is actually just like, I'm going to challenge Putin to a round of golf, and whoever wins, something like that. Like, that's his plan. And it's like, we'll televise it. I get you, man, and like, obviously anyone who's thought about this, but you can't have it both ways, though, can you? Like, you can't believe in the power of the office versus the individual and have it on one side only of politics.
Yeah, but you can, because Donald Trump has built a let's say an ecosystem of yes men around him who don't have any policy depth. Anyone who did have policy depth,
given the debate.
Well, anyone who did have policy depth in the Trump administration, he got rid of in about 5 minutes, right? And it was just a revolving door of people who were trying to do the right thing, and then that's why no one look at the Trump administration. Look how, like, the turnover of different people in different positions. Like, no one stayed because people who like it's that whole like deep state thing. There was no deep state under the Trump administration. It was Donald Trump and his kids, right?
Yeah, well, Kevin Rudd was hard to work for as well.
Well, I mean,
but the motherfucker can speak Mandarin, so you got to take the good with the bad.
well, at least Kevin Rudd was like mildly competent. Like, but so you think it would be this like broken trust or something with the American people if Biden goes or whatever. So are you what are you sort of saying? Like, are you saying that? Like,
I'm not saying that. Okay, let me try to.
Well,
let me
okay.
try to
Can I just ask my extra question? So my question is, do you think they're better off keeping him, or do you think they're better off moving to a new candidate? Do you think staying with him on the basis that at least then you don't reveal that you've doubled down on the wrong guy, like that's better off to stay with him? Like, what's your position on that?
Yeah. Look, my position is that there was a very short window after the debate for Biden to be like, hey, look, this is kind of on me. I told everyone that I was fine. I'm obviously not fine. This is not just a head cold. I've got some things going on. I need to rest and support the party as best I can to make sure that we leave America in a good place or whatever it is, right? Like, there's a very short window for him to, like you said, gracefully hang up the gloves and take his position more as just like, I'm going to have that VP energy, right? Now he hasn't. I just think that you're screwed either way, so you might as well stay with him because you lose incumbent power by swapping him out, and whoever comes in, it's just going to seem like a botched job. It's like the party's already fucked up and put their chips behind Biden. They've kind of lied to say he was better than he was when it'd be very clear to everyone post the debate that they would have known. And yeah, so I think that, like you said, it's going to kick the party into complete and utter civil war because of the whole Kamala thing. And then you got to think about the black vote and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, it's too messy. It's too late. It's too far gone. You got all the donors locked into Biden personally. I just think that you shut the bed. You're going to have to live with it. There was a short window to say, look, hey guys, it's my fault. I thought I could do it. I couldn't. And there's no shame in that. I mean, I said I was only going to run for one term anyway. And, I thought I could, but, I want to do what's best and what's the right thing to do. That's gone. That window's gone, in my opinion. That's what I feel.
Yeah, I don't think of it in quite the same way. So I think that window, like, usually in politics, right? And we have this here in Australia too, right? When there's whispers about leadership spills and the like, right? Everyone is all on board saying how great the Prime Minister is or the incumbent leader is, saying, no, I fully support this person. I fully support this person. Yep, no, they're great. And then they keep saying that until, like, they're gone and the next person's elected, right? And I think that's kind of what I think would happen here. So, of course, like, you're going to have Obama come out and support the incumbent, right? Because they have to hedge their bets. Like, even if Biden's only a 30% chance of, like, retaining the nomination, right? Hypothetically, right? You've got to work under the assumption that he's the incumbent nominee, and you've got to say all the right things in case he is the person who is put before the people in November. So, but when they shift, like, no one's going to remember that. No one's going to think about that. But just to your point about, like, I actually think betting markets are a good way of answering some of these questions, or at least they're not always right, but giving a bit of sense. So I'm just going to read out the favorite to be the Democratic nominee. This is as of right now, as we're speaking, is actually Kamala Harris. So she is actually ahead of Joe Biden to be the nominee. They're about evenly priced, and then you go to, like, your more X Factor wild card sort of candidates. Gavin Newsom, Michelle Obama, Gretchen Whitmer. And,
Michelle Obama.
yeah, well, I think I
love it.
I think people love a bit of that Obama.
It's like, no, we're going to go deep into the bench, right? Like you're a serving VP, and it looks to be the exact scenario that a VP should take over. But we're going to pull Michelle Obama.
Well, to be fair, she
definitely wrote that biography a bit too early.
No, but to be fair, Kamala Harris is the favorite. She's the favorite to be the. But then you
okay.
Hang on. Then you look at the actual result. So Kamala Harris. Okay, so this is where it becomes, you see actually a really big change in the odds, right? So Donald Trump is actually favorite to win the election, to be president, and he's, just for those who actually want the numbers, he's $1.53. All right. Kamala Harris is then. So I should just say, with that those previous odds where I said Kamala Harris was actually favorite, she was marginally favorite. So she was just ahead of Joe Biden, right? So Joe Biden was about, I think it was something like 220 v 235 or something. So she was 220 and Joe Biden was 235. So just a slim amount ahead. When you look at the actual presidential results, so you've got Donald Trump $1.53, Kamala Harris $4.50, Joe Biden $9. So to me, what I read from that is that basically the suggestion is that if they switch to Kamala Harris, she has a much higher chance of actually winning than Joe Biden. So I think in the totality of everything, like, I think they should. I
think you're right, though. Like, I mean, it's not you're right. The bookies are right that if you were going to, you'd have to do it under the grounds of, like, Kamala's got this, right? She is also incumbent, and therefore she should not lose some of that incumbent advantage. Where,
but
like,
no
someone
likes
like,
her.
well, I mean, that's what I was going to ask, right? Like, whenever Kamala comes up and says, "Oh, she's unpopular," I'm like, but why? Like, why do you believe she's
can't
unpopular?
talk either.
Yeah, but I mean, yeah. But I mean, like, I get
she's got to own the "I'm not Donald Trump" vibe, Like, she's got to own that. Hey, and she's got to go on the attack. Like, she's got to be, hey, this guy, he's a motherfucker. Don't vote for this guy. Vote for me. Like,
yeah,
she's got to do that. She's got to be aggressive.
I think that the bookies are right that if you're going to do it at this late stage, we're 90 days out, man. You got to go with the VP. You got to go with the VP. That's my view. But honestly, man, I just think that people can smell a shit show, right?
Like, it's a shit show. We've been able to see it coming 4 years ago. Like, we knew. 4 years ago, there were conversations about, is Joe Biden fit to be president? Because he can't he's an old man. How's he going to go again? Like, and this was 4 years ago. And now we're here 4 years and we're having this kind of a conversation. Like,
when
how
will
ridiculous.
The world just, like, pay Joe Rogan the respect that he deserves for constantly talking about these things where he's totally bullied and called an idiot about, cognitive decline, and then finally he's proven right. Like, he never gets a leg up. Anyway, I want to pivot from this to something a little bit more. I was saying I was feeling sad when I watched the debate, and actually the thing that got me was something that's been doing the rounds that had a split screen of Joe Biden in the debate versus him talking in 2019 on various debates and things like that. And oh my God, did that not show how dynamic and sharp and, like, just really admirable. And he was such a good debater. He was, like, fast, he was cutting, no nonsense kind of guy, had a lot of character as well in 2019. And then they cut to the debate, a couple of weeks ago, and it was just, the decline was just so stark and it was so sad, right? And I kind of I think I spoke to you on the phone after that. I just thought, imagine, like, you always get upset, even at our age, when, like, your body lets you down, right? You just feel really deflated. But imagine when your mind lets you down. And I just kind of feel like everyone has to understand that, like, time comes for everyone. And this will happen to everyone, man. Like, I just feel really sad about the situation that he had to do this so publicly.
I think it's very telling that he hasn't already gracefully exited, Like, what? He's an old man, you know. Like, doesn't he have better shit to do? But I think this is such a powerful example of what power does to people, you know.
Maybe he has to keep on doing it to keep Hunter out of jail.
But I think, like, Joe Biden is someone who, there's a bit of like cognitive dissonance going on here, right? Where he knows he wants to be, he loves
Two-term.
kind of being president, you know, deep down inside. And he's got to come up with a narrative in his mind that suits him as to why he should still be the nominee. But it's just, it's going to be tragic. The consequence is going to be tragic because he's going to lose the election if he hangs on, and his legacy is going to be ruined. He's going to be tarnished. He's going to be known as the guy who could have given them a chance. If his whole purpose in running for president 4 years ago was to prevent Donald Trump from, you know, getting a second term, what good was it? And I think, you know, unfortunately, not to talk in these kind of terms, but I'll do it anyway. But like, Biden's gravestone is not going to read, you know, the man who stopped Donald Trump. It's going to read the man who empowered Donald Trump. And I think that's deeply regrettable.
Reeks of that Ruth Bader Ginsburg, doesn't it? Staying at the party a little bit too long. But like I said, when you get to that point, I do believe it's the people around you. It's so hard to hang up the gloves, man. Like you said, it becomes, he's been doing this for 50 years, right?
The next 3 months are going to be pretty much every news article is going to be an example of his, like, a fuck up, basically, like a gaffe. And how can you possibly get any of your positive messages out? Like, how can you possibly, like, I actually didn't watch the press conference today. What do they call it? The big boy press conference or whatever. I actually didn't watch that, you know, but all I saw out of it was just gaff after gaff. Well, actually, I don't.
Apparently, it was better. It was better.
It was better, but like I think he fucked up by calling Kamala Harris or, you know, Vice President Donald Trump. But like the Zelensky one was really bad.
That was heinous.
But what I was going to say,
you can see the association.
But what I was going to say is that the thing is, no one is watching his press conferences for his message. Yeah. They're watching his press conferences for the fuck ups. And it's like, oh, the 5 top biggest fuck ups in this press conference. And that is not the framework that you need for a successful candidate or a viable candidate. And I'll also say this. For the bits that I saw him do well, he got the lines.
Yeah.
He was like, it was probably like 95% there. He got the lines. He said them correctly. He didn't fuck up. He sounded in command. He sounded in control. But 5% is all you need to sink the boat.
Yeah. I mean, and he knows that. He's been in the game for a long time. He understands. Like, he must know the score, right? When he's with it, right? I'm sure it comes in and out. But didn't he call himself like the first black female president? that was amazing. That was amazing. He's just had so many like little senior moments, right? And I think that you know, this is a perfect use case for AI, right? Like, surely they can hook him up Weekend at Bernie style, and like as he's speaking, they hijack his voice with the AI, and just like someone at the back, some interns like fucking typing out a Descript code.
They need like auto tune for
for
presidents with Alzheimer's.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I feel like what he needs is a very, very strong presidential ad campaign where they just fucking get a paid actor. You could definitely pick up a few people in Florida. They would look exactly like Biden. Get them to like, you know, get some Hussein-style doubles and just get them working every state all at once, and just saturate the market.
Just before we wrap up, what probability do you give it that Biden will be out before we release this episode on Sunday morning?
I think they're going to go with him. I think he's going to hang on, and they'll just they'll go down with the ship, Dido style.
Yeah, so I think a low probability he'll have resigned by this episode, but I think gets released, that is. But I think there's a very good chance. I think these things are a little bit like tomato sauce coming out of the sauce bottle once it gets going, and I think we've already started. Even George Clooney's written against Biden, so I think we're close, and even Pelosi, some of her statements, Chuck Schumer, these are pretty powerful people, and these are the people that you were talking about earlier, doing the things that are within their remit, which is to try and encourage.
And don't forget the ladies on The View, talking about powerful women. So, but the last thing though, who do you like? Just as a totally uninformed Aussie, who do you like?
As in, like, for a candidate to replace him?
Yeah.
Okay, you know what? I always had, I was probably the only guy in the world who had a soft spot for Hillary Clinton. And I just loved the idea that Bill Clinton's wife could be president. So that's not going to happen. But I do like the idea that Michelle Obama is in the mix somehow. Not that I know that much about her, though. But in terms of viable candidates, the one that keeps being mentioned is Gavin Newsom. And I don't really know that much about him other than that he's governor of California. And I tell you what, California is a fucking shit show. And I can say, having been there in the last year, it fucking sucks. Like, there's a lot of problems and shit happening there. But on the by the same token, this guy can fucking talk. Like, he would be like, hey, I'd be happy to back him, like, in a debate against Trump. So maybe, like, that doesn't matter.
Yeah. You know what? I also love I love the idea of Hillary Clinton too, in some ways, just because, everyone goes, oh, then you buy Hillary.
We're both hot for Hillary.
Yeah, you buy Hillary, but you get a free Bill Clinton, right? That's like what everyone thinks. And the same way that works for Michelle Obama, because you get Michelle, but then you've got a side order of Obama on a bed of rice, right? So, so that has some appeal too. I would say that from what I've seen, Newsom, he's the man. Like, he ticks a lot of those boxes. And like you said, if you put that kind of hat on around, like, who's going to duel Trump, I reckon Gavin Newsom would be the ideal kind of gladiator to go in there with him.
It could, you know what? Like, wouldn't it be funny if Biden actually is agitating?
He wants to do it
to
can't
leave,
broker a deal with.
But he just wants to leave to get a certain candidate up, and he doesn't want Kamala Harris to be. So it's like he's just holding up, doing this. Don't make me do another fucking press conference. Don't make me do another big boy conference. I can't do it. My pants. I need some of them nappies, not these fucking big boy pants. And behind the scenes, he's actually trying to broker some sort of, like, way that a better candidate can take over from. But anyway, but we don't know. Like, we don't fucking know.
You don't. And, like, obviously all this stuff is like, a mask, really. But yeah, I think if you think about the names that you mentioned, Hillary has been proven to tank with Trump in a debate. Michelle Obama, like, I don't think her black sassy thing would play that well with Trump. Like, he just
well, she's just not a politician, right? She's not.
No, it would just that. I think that would be horrible.
You need someone aggressive against Trump. You need someone who will, like, you can't have someone who wants to come off looking like the nice person, right? You've got to have someone who's willing to. Yeah, actually, it was funny seeing Biden say, "Oh, that was the best conference ever. I've never seen a better conference. People were telling me that was the best conference they've ever seen." It's like, fuck 'em hell, man. Like, that's Donald Trump's line,
Oh my God. It's and I think Biden did do it pretty well in the last cycle, right? Like, that he had that famous one where he's like, "Will you just shut up?" Everyone, like, cheered and stuff like that. This guy never shuts up, because that's true with Trump, right? Like, and I think that he does. And I think that's a sad thing. Like, is it okay if you used to be a great man? And probably the answer is no. But I don't. I think they'll be sticking with old Joe. and that's just how the chips are going to fall, in my opinion. But yeah, that was that's where time comes for all of us.
All right, over and out.
With Britain and France
Over and
on
out.
the verge of war, is this the best time? I want to warn against partisan fighting. Pick up a pen, start writing. I want to talk about what I have learned, the hard-won wisdom I have earned. As far as the people are concerned, you have to serve. You could continue to serve. One last time, the people will hear from me. One last time. And if we get this right, we're gonna teach them how to say goodbye. You and I. Mr. President, they will say you're weak. No, they will see we're strong. Your position is so unique, so I'll use it to move them along. Why do you have to say goodbye? If I say goodbye, the nation learns to move on. It outlives me when I'm gone. Like the scripture says, everyone shall sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one shall make them afraid. They'll be safe in the nation we've made. I want to sit under my own vine and fig tree, a moment alone in the shade, at home in this nation we've made. One last time. One last time. Though in reviewing the incidents of my administration, I am unconscious of intentional error, I am nevertheless too sensible of my defects not to think it probable that I may have committed many errors. I shall also carry with me the hope that my country will view them with indulgence, and that after 45 years of my life dedicated to its service with an upright zeal, the faults of incompetent abilities will be consigned to oblivion, as I myself will soon be to the mansions of rest. I anticipate with pleasing expectation that retreat in which I promise myself to realize the sweet enjoyment of partaking in the midst of my fellow citizens, the benign influence of good laws and of a free government, the ever-favorite object of my heart, and the happy reward, as I trust, of our mutual cares, labors, and dangers. One last time.
George Washington's going home.
Teach him how to say goodbye.
George Washington's going home.